Hey everyone. So, the reason I'm doing this particular lecture is that when you move from one body paragraph to the next body paragraph, you either have no transition and the paragraphs kind of feel separate and isolated from one another, or you try to use transitions that you would actually not use in that context. So this whole thing is about which transitions to use when, and I'm going to do a dividing line right here. So there are within a paragraph those transitions, and then there's between paragraphs. These are harder to do than these, and some of you don't do either one, but conceptually this is harder, which is why I think what you do is you choose one from over here. So I'm going to draw a little rectangle thing, and this represents a body paragraph, and this also represents a body paragraph. And let's just say for today that this paragraph, you're writing about, your thesis is on how to get the most fruit from your fruit trees. That's the overriding thesis that you're talking about throughout the whole paper. And one body paragraph is on fig trees and one body paragraph is on apple trees. And in this particular paragraph, the good thing about fig trees is there are very few fungus, bacteria, little insects that destroy figs, at least in Portland. I don't know if they're in Cambodia. But here, nothing really bothers them except big things like squirrels and birds. So I would write about all that stuff in this paragraph. Now, apple trees, it's a totally different ball game. Not only do squirrels like them, especially as it gets colder, but there's all these countless diseases. There's like maggots, and stuff that curls the leaves and makes the leaves sort of get all ugly and brown. And so to grow apple trees, it's, I think, much more challenging. You would probably never spray a fig tree. You might spray an apple tree. What I'm interested in is what you say right here as the transition as you move from the fig to the apple. It can be a subordinating clause. It could be an entire sentence. It's kind of up to you. But the transitions on this side of the line tend to be somewhat long. And it wouldn't be unusual to have an entire sentence. So I'm going to give you one. Although, like with fig trees, you must fight large pests such as squirrels. In addition, with apple trees, you also have a whole host of other problems that you don't have with fig trees. Now, this last part I'm not sure I would say, but what I had was the part where I talked about the fig tree, and then I left that behind and I moved into talking about apples. And that's the transition. Although you still have blah, blah, blah. This is the subordinating conjunction. It goes on for a while, you have a comma, and then you start into talking about apples. You have a whole host of other problems with apple trees. And that is sort of the topic sentence part. So sometimes you can combine a topic sentence with a transition into one sentence. Okay? So this is really hard to do. What you want to do, and this is why it's hard, is think about what's the common thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about what's going to destroy the fruit. And so in the transition, that's the thing you want to talk about. There are some things that destroy figs. There are more things that destroy apple. So what's the common topic? That's the thing that you're going to forget to do. Okay, so over here, these are the things that should stay on this side of the line and not be used in this case. So I'm going to use a totally different color. There's different kinds of these transitions, and I represent them as different kinds of road signs. Ooh, my diamond is really wacky. So this is when there's a sharp turn when you're driving. It doesn't usually look like that. I'll try to do a better one this time. Oh, my diamond's better. Okay, and this one's going to be the curvy road ahead one. So for this particular road sign, it's about moving from a general discussion that you're having to a specific discussion. So, for example, for instance, specifically, those are one or two words that you use to bridge from one sentence to the other. Notice it's different than the long, somewhat longer transition you need over here. This one is when you move from a similar point. It's slightly different. So likewise, as well, you've ended talking about this one thing here, but you're going to talk about yet another reason why it's fun to go to PCC. So with this theme is it's fun to go to PCC. Here's a new point. Similarly, it's also, we have really good instructors here, or whatever. And then this one is the contrasting point. On the other hand, however, and again, one or two words, and it usually will go at the beginning, although you can push the transition back further in the sentence for variety's sake. So you can say, however, not in the very first position, but maybe the fifth word back. Okay, so use both of these. Don't use any of these short words over here. So what I don't want to see is to see something like secondly or second. So there's more different kinds of transitions than this. There's one about sequence, which I didn't write on the board because you don't use them very often. These are the three that you use the most, but none of them should bleed over to this part. So however, in contrast, that's all for once you get into the apple paragraph. But at the very beginning, you're trying to do something hard. You're trying to leave behind this discussion and move to a totally different kind of fruit tree. And that requires more words and a kind of conceptual move. Okay? Remember this. I am going to hold you to it. I'm going to look for your transitions right here. And I'm going to look for your transitions within the paragraph, and I'm going to say, why don't you have a contrasting transition? Okay, good luck.